Just Friends is a 2025 American rom-com directed by Roger Kumble and stars Ryan Reynolds, Amy Smart, Anna Faris, and Chris Klein. The plot follows a former nerd returning to visit his hometown for Christmas, not expecting to cross paths with the girl who friend-zoned him back in high school. Now, normally I probably wouldn't review a movie like this, a run-of-the-mill early 2000s rom-com, in an era known for lots of exactly that. But A, it's a Christmas movie, and B, it's really not too bad, all things considered. I also kind of consider it, just on the edge of the, the end of an era. And that era would be, that late 90s, early 2000s comedy movies, an era that, like it or hate it, had a recognizable style. Around like 2008 to 2010, I started noticing comedy just kind of die as a genre. And I'm not sure it ever really came back. If it did, maybe it's in the form of smarter indie stuff like Tim Robinson's recent projects and films like Splitsville and The Baltimoreans, both from 2025. I mean, in the 90s and early 2000s, I saw every comedy movie I could, especially of the more, mainstream variety. I don't think I've actually ever heard anyone talk about this movie, but, a few friends and I liked it back in 2005, and I still watch it every, 4 or 5 years or so. I get a good amount of chuckles despite its, many, many flaws. It's written well enough to, separate it from the trash bin of comedy, I think. So it's a typical rom-com in that it's based on two people. Our leads, Chris, played by Ryan Reynolds, and Janie, played by Amy Smart. And in my opinion, this actually starts off pretty strong with a very, 80s, 90s style opening with Ryan Reynolds, showing his comedic strengths. You see him as an overweight high schooler, singing that one All for One song, and I swear. He's wearing like makeup and prosthetics to look that way. Dare I say, a fat suit. And this is where, Reynolds is strongest here, which sucks because you only get it for like 10 minutes. He gets bullied, turned down by his best friend, Jamie, played by Amy Smart, who he's in love with. So he moves to LA, becomes successful and attractive, but also shallow and self-obsessed. I guess you could say there's a little Scrooge influence in there, but I might be reading too much into it. It's basically a barely above average comedy film. So, I guess you could ask, what is it that I like about this movie? A mostly unlikable lead, predictable story, predictable by-the-book ending aside. I guess I mostly like the side characters. And I had to actually think about that. What do I like about this movie? So it's pretty much led by early 2000s comedy queen Anna Faris, Chris Klein, Christopher Marchetti, veteran actress Julie Haggerty, and we even get a little bit of Stephen Root. I also like the pacing. It's never boring at all, in my opinion. And like most movies of this, of its time, it's a tight hour 36. So it never really overstays its welcome. It never really slows down too much. So I'm giving Just Friends a 2.5 out of 4 stars. It's a solid rom-com, that succeeds with the com and kind of fails when it focuses on the rom. I was always confused about its PG-13 rating too during the era of the super raunchy comedy film. But oddly enough, it doesn't really hurt the movie. I find this actually to be pretty funny, edgy enough to get you to laugh, but safe enough to watch around family or your or whatever your kids for the most part. It's never going to be a classic, but it's maintained a spot on my shelf. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.
Subscribe right now, please.
And I swear.